Welcome to week 6, episode 6 of the Gustavo Cup Fantasy Football Podcast. I am your co-host, Sean Ballek, along with my friend and little bro.
Yes, sir. Ian Siddiqui. Week 6, man. Can't believe
Week
time is
6.
flying.
We are a
We
third of the way through the regular season for
third of the way
fantasy.
through. Third of the way through. I think that we're starting to get the identity of a lot of our fantasy teams. We understand what's working. Some of us are making moves. Some of us are doing better than others, obviously, and we've seen the progression of a lot of teams and players this year thus far.
That is true. Yep, some of us are making moves. Some of us are figuring it out still. Um, yeah, so it's been a fun season so far, and I'm excited for the rest of it, man.
Absolutely. So, question, obviously, what are you drinking tonight?
I am drinking Warsteiner
Okay, nice.
Oktoberfest.
Well, cheers, brother. I'm drinking a little bit of Espolón, and let's do a toast to Mr. Stephen Wiggins. Happy birthday! Uh,
Happy birthday, Steven.
Cheers.
All right. Oof. Haven't
Yeah,
had beer since Saturday, since that brutal loss.
yeah. So should we jump? Should we jump into it?
Yeah, let's jump
So
into
we
it.
had some really great matchups last week. We'll start off with my matchup. I suffered from a few injuries, took the loss to Bizzo's team. You putting up another massive week. After following up on that week that you had last week, putting up 132 against Steven, and on his birthday week, took the W. A really close
Well,
matchup came down to the wire, but you ended up getting the win. We had Mishloff over Jeremy. We had Mike pulling out the W over Evan. We had Kyle get the W over Mark. And then we see that Nick took the L to Ralphie. Ralphie having top points this week. What matchups were you looking at specifically?
I mean, I messaged all y'all. I was looking at all those 4 that were still in contention on Monday night. That made the Monday night game so much more fun. Plus, everybody
Absolutely.
had a shot at getting that top scorer for the week. And then Ralph came and took that down with a couple Josh Jacobs touchdowns. But my matchup with Steven got really close. It it started with, I think I had a 12-point lead in Devontae Adams, and he had Jacoby Myers, and almost caught me. Came really, really close to catching me, and I ended up winning by like 2.5 points.
Yeah, it definitely came down to the wire. I think you were expecting a bigger game out of Adams, but really mediocre game for him going against
He
that
um
Green Bay defense.
he came in with a shoulder injury, so I was actually really worried whether he was going to play or not. I didn't
Gotcha.
know if it was going to matter, and then it ended up being a big deal because Jacoby Myers had 75 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah, I saw you move him to the flex, giving you some flexibility in case he ended up not playing, which was a smart move, putting Diggs and Brown as your starting wide receivers. But yeah, overall, pulled out the W, so no complaints with that.
Nope.
Nice.
Nope. No
Yeah,
complaints there. Sorry,
Yeah, I
go
was gonna
on.
say one. Yeah, I was gonna say one of the matchups that I was looking at throughout the Sunday and into Sunday night and Monday. We saw Mishloff get the W from Jeremy. Really liked Jeremy's team this year, and Mishloff was able to kind of get the W. I had him. I think we both had him winning this week, but we finally saw Kittle go off with 3 touchdowns on Sunday night. Goddard actually had a big game for Jeremy, his best showing of the year thus far. So in a year where tight ends haven't had the best of years, just low numbers all across the board, we saw Kittle and Goddard have a nice little battle here between Jeremy and Mishloff.
Yeah, they did. That was surprising on both fronts. I think I know Goddard had a really good matchup. I started him in another league, but neither one of them had really had a big game this season. So
Yeah.
it was nice to see. Unfortunately for Mishloff, he had Achan go down with an knee injury, and he's going to go to the IR.
Yeah, it's
But
unfortunate
still,
to
they
see.
both had some big weeks. I thought Jeremy was going to get him on Monday night, but Jordan Love just couldn't do anything, and the Raiders just destroyed him.
Yeah, 3 touchdowns for Love on Monday night just really didn't live up to the potential or the hype going into the game. And we saw some success with Mishloff running that dual running back system with Achin and Mustard. And, unfortunately, we saw Achin go down. Mustard's going to be getting the majority of the work down in Miami. Waiver wires were surprisingly not as active as I thought they were going to be for second, third string running backs down in Miami, but we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, we'll take a look at that in a few minutes. It was pretty much exactly what I thought it was going to be. There is the other matchup I wanted to take a look at, and it was Kyle's.
Yeah,
Kyle versus Mark. I thought Mark had him or had a shot Monday night. I the Justin Jefferson injury just really killed him.
yeah.
Along with the Herbert injury, and then Olave has Derek Carr out, so Derek Carr's just not throwing the ball deep. And then he still had a shot Monday night, and just couldn't get enough from, I think it was Christian Watson on Monday night. He got drugged down by a horse collar tackle. Otherwise, he would have gotten into the end zone, and I think it would have been really close. So
Yeah.
Kyle escapes with a victory despite benching DJ Moore.
Yeah, we were giving him a lot of grief on Thursday, when he benched DJ, but honestly, surprisingly, his team was able to kind of come through with the W. Yeah,
And then
pulled it
I
out.
want to throw out the other point that he changed his name to Purgatory Poppy. That you, a little tease at you.
No, it's a great name. Yeah, it's a great name. We talked about it off camera privately, and he has stayed in that purgatory state for almost a decade. He's never in the playoffs, but he's never in that relegation bracket. He stays in that seventh, eighth place, and as you can see, he's in seventh place now. He's definitely the king of purgatory. So I like the name. It's definitely valid.
Yeah, I mean, there you go.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, it's no surprise. We like to bring in the top scorer of the week into the podcast. So without further ado, let's introduce our high scorer for the week and this week's guest, Mr. Ralph Jackson.
Ralph Jackson.
Thanks for joining us, brother.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you having me. Yeah, long overdue for some points for my team.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, really turning around these last 2 weeks. Chase is back, baby.
Yeah, finally. Yeah, I would have liked I would have liked him to spread it out a little bit, but I'm not gonna complain, especially against my opponent last week.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely don't want him blowing the load all in 1 week, but nonetheless, really, I mean, 141. That's a big number, especially in our league. And then kind of taking down Nick, your arch nemesis. You guys have had some epic battles throughout the years.
Yeah.
So it was, I picked you last week. I thought that your team was going to get the job done. Ballek, on the other hand, who'd you pick last week?
I picked Nick last week.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ralph. I did not expect Jamar Chase to have 47 points.
I'm not sure anybody did.
And I also didn't expect Lamar Jackson to bust against Pittsburgh. And I found out later that he had his receivers drop like 7 passes, including 2 touchdowns. It was bad.
It was so bad.
Yeah.
Looking at the highlights, and it comes so everyone's going to see that last play where he gave up the ball, which led, to the winning drive by the Steelers. But no one's going to see the 11 drop passes from his tight end, running back, and wide receivers. You said, 2 drop touchdowns. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, both of them hit the receivers right in the hands.
Yeah.
Actually, all of them, every single drop. It wasn't like it was like one of those drops where like, oh, he barely touched it. No, they hit them right in the hands, and they just nothing
Yeah, it reminded me of that week one
for
KC
the
game.
Chiefs.
Yeah, the Chiefs, where it was just like, all right, I know y'all a little bit rusty. It's week one, but everyone was dropping the ball in Baltimore last week.
Yeah. But
Yes.
yeah, so
So
not expecting those things, and then I'm sorry, Ralph. The James Conner injury is unfortunate.
It is. I mean, it was, not 4 weeks, but his injury history is well known. So it was expected that I drafted him knowing he was going to get hurt sooner or later.
Okay.
That's why I got
yeah,
him.
yeah, beautiful. You
Yeah.
got Kamara in there, and he's getting the work, man. He's getting the work in the last 2 weeks, kind of doubling the targets that everyone else is expecting. I think that they were really waiting. The offense was at least really waiting for him to come back, and they just straight up devoured New England. I don't know what the hell is going on up in New England, but this is not the Patriots of old. This team is, I think it's the worst in the league.
It might be. They looked good the first couple weeks, and then they've just been taking beatings ever since then. So they might be the worst team in the league. It's them and the Giants, I think, are the two in competition for that.
Yeah, right. Arizona's kind of slid out of that conversation with some big showings. In fact,
Arizona, Houston, a couple teams have been playing good football and then I wouldn't consider them one of the worst in the league anymore.
Right.
yeah, right.
The
Yeah,
Raiders
absolutely, I agree.
beating up on the Packers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was, I had the Packers going into that. It was an interesting game. I mean, just couldn't get offense flowing really on either sides. I mean, you had Dubs. How do you think that played out? What kind of went into the process of starting him and then kind of seeing the results? Like, he's had some great weeks thus far. You gave him the start this week, and it just didn't work out. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, man. Well, I had drafted originally. I drafted AJ Dillon, and watching Packers game, realized that he wasn't gonna get it done. And Jordan Love looked good those first couple of weeks, passing it around. So and Evans got injured the other week with the hamstring, so I needed a safety wide receiver just in case. And he's still questionable to play this week, even though he's on a bye. Dubs is on a bye. But yeah, that's why I picked him up. Just as a little insurance, but yeah, I'm not sure what the Packers are really doing, especially since Aaron Jones will be back.
Yeah. But yeah, let's take a look at your upcoming week. You got full torqued, Mr. Stephen Wiggins. Happy birthday again, brother. You're playing him. He's got Mahomes.
Happy
Yeah, right.
birthday, Stephen.
Shout out to Mr. Wiggins. He started out hot, but he hasn't had a lot of teams score big numbers against him. So a little bit kind of inflated record there on Wiggins' side, but nonetheless solid team. What matchups are you really looking at this week coming into Sunday?
I'm actually kind of worried about the Hurts to Smith connection. Just that can go either way. Last time, who was I playing? I think Jeremy has AJ Brown.
Yeah,
and destroyed me. But other than that, Hall a little bit. Not really worried about Pierce against New Orleans. Not worried about Pitts. So yeah, really
definitely not worried about Pitts.
Yeah, so really for me, it's Mahomes always a threat, and then wide receivers and Hall is the running back.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Mahomes
absolutely.
versus Denver is who I was looking at. And then the other interesting one I see, well, Jacoby Myers has been good all season. So that's somebody that I would be concerned about a little bit. And then Alexander Madison with Justin Jefferson going down, he might be getting more work. He might be getting more passing work. We'll see how that works out.
Yeah, it's tough. Even though Mahomes is playing Denver, once again, we've talked about this. Casey, while they're a great team and they're getting W's, they're not an explosive team anymore where we're gonna see, someone put up, 40, 50 points in fantasy land because they're not a big play offense anymore. Unfortunately. So, while you do have Mahomes against Denver, I expect it to be a heavy run game for the Chiefs once they get up early. So Mahomes might not even play the fourth quarter in that game. We'll see how it plays
Yeah.
out.
But he might not need to play the fourth quarter for them to put up 45 points.
Very true. Very true.
He could have 5 touchdowns before then.
Well, I was looking at a comparison today, and it was a Mahomes to Fields comparison. Fields has
Oh,
11 touchdowns this year. Mahomes has
yeah.
10. Fields has 5 interceptions. Mahomes has 4. Mahomes has a 93 quarterback rating, whereas Fields has like a 97.
That just
It
brings me right back to my point is that Justin Fields has already played Denver.
Very true. Very true. So we shall see. Definitely, those when you play Denver's, you see your numbers a little inflated the next week.
Yeah, sometimes they just give up 70 points and you don't know why or how it happened.
Touche, touche. So, Ralphie, let's talk a little bit about the league this year, man. We see Nick and you kind of at the bottom of the pack this year, which is it's not normal to see. You guys are typically, at the top of the pack among all active players. You guys have, some of the most championships. Um, what do you think is a little bit different this year? Is it injury? Is it just preparation was different? Is it just the league as a whole has become more competitive? What do you think it is?
Yeah, well, definitely the league is more competitive, but it's just kind of a strange start to the season. I think there are some slow starts and obviously some huge starts. Obviously, no one saw Kirk Cousins being the number 1 quarterback 3 weeks into the league, into the season. But stuff like that happens now.
Absolutely.
But I still think even Mark's team, he's still unfortunately winless, but I like his squad. I thought he was one of the better teams, one of the better drafted teams coming into the season. But yeah, we're down there at the bottom. Even I'm still down there. I'm not making the cut yet, but the season's still early. Still, a
Absolutely.
lot of people can get hurt. A lot of people can step up. Ballek picked up Fields off the waiver wire and threw up 40. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different variables, but yeah, I think it's just a little slow start to the season. Nobody saw the Dolphins are good. They got great players, but nobody saw the Dolphins throwing up those type of numbers.
Yeah.
In the beginning of the season. So
yeah, nobody thought Kyle was just going to drop Justin Fields.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of the moves that have been made this season have definitely been questionable.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Awesome. Well, listen, Ralphie, once again, top scorer for this week. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're not gonna.
I'm gonna ask him.
Oh, okay.
Who are you
okay.
picking? Who are you picking this week in your matchup against Mr. Stephen Wiggins, birthday boy?
Unfortunately, man, I'm gonna have to give him the L this weekend for his birthday. He's
that fresh birthday L.
Yeah. He passed on Jacobs, and I think he's gonna regret it this week playing against New England.
Yeah, we'll see. We shall see. I'm also going to go with you this week. I think Hurst is really going to get up for that game against the Jets. We see a resurgence of Jamar Chase, even though he's playing that Seattle team that has 2 of the best cornerbacks in the league, great cornerback core. But I just like your team overall. I just don't see Mahomes putting up a big number. We'll see how it plays out. And obviously, Paul going up against that front defensive line of Philly. I'm going to go with you this week.
Yep, I'm gonna go with you this week also, Ralph. I really like your running backs this week, Jacobs and Kamara. I think they're gonna have good games against New England and Houston. And I don't think that Steven, unless Mahomes just tears apart Denver, I don't think Steven's team catches up with you. So we'll find out early if my prediction is going to be what my prediction will be. But I'm going with you in this one. I don't think he puts up that many points. I think you can still reel him in.
Absolutely.
Appreciate the vote.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much again for joining us. Once again, Mr. Ralph Jackson, Week 5 top scorer.
Ralph Jackson, good to see you, brother.
Likewise. You guys have a good one.
Absolutely. Take care.
Thank you. You too.
Yeah, later.
Ralph logging off, or we chatting for a few seconds?
He's logging
Oh,
out.
he bounced. Right as I said it, he laughed and then logged out.
That's funny. All right, let's continue down the list.
Nicholas.
Yeah, myself and versus Nick. Definitely made some moves to my team after the injuries last week. We saw Richardson. He's on the IR, going to be out at least 4 weeks. Sprained shoulder on the throwing arm. Does not look good at all. Picked up Stafford on the waiver wire. I think that he's going to suffice. Once again, since trading off Allen to basically improve my running back room, really struggled at the quarterback position. Thought I had something with Richardson. Unfortunately, the injury bug is not isolated to, anyone this year. It's really affecting everyone across the board. But, as it goes in fantasy land, have to make adjustments. I have to make moves, and that's the reason why Stafford is on the squad now. I do expect a big week, week in, week out against McCaffrey, going to Cleveland this upcoming week. So, is going to have to contend with that great rush defense that they have there, led by Myles Garrett. But I still think he's going to get his numbers. Same thing with Robinson up against Washington. And, Pacheco, I expect to have a huge week this week against Denver. Denver's one of the worst against the run. We saw what the Dolphins did to them a few weeks ago. I just think that my team is looking really, really good this week. I think Nakua obviously has gone down a little bit with Cup coming off the IR. And honestly, I just think that I'm going to pull off the W this week. We also see Barkley in Nick's lineup coming off injury. We don't know how limited he's going to be there. So I think I get the better of Nick this week.
Okay. I mean, yeah. I saw you picked up Stafford. I rolled him out once this season. It's sometimes you just got to do that. And like
against
you
Arizona,
said,
against Arizona, I think that I gotta take that risk.
Well, like you said, you've been struggling at quarterback since you traded off Josh Allen, and then you're also 1-2 since that trade. So it doesn't seem to be working for you. I don't think Bijan likes playing for you. But
he has not had big weeks. I mean,
he had one good one, but the other ones have just kind of been
Well,
yeah.
One thing
that week
on.
against Jacksonville's a pretty good week, but otherwise it's just been mediocre. So
one thing I can count on is death taxes and receiving a trade from Sean Ballek for Robinson every single week.
My offers have gotten worse and worse every week because he keeps not putting up numbers.
Yeah, but the thing is, we know that as the season progresses and all of these old fucks start to get tired and the young rookie Robinson continues to excel and learn this offense and get more opportunities, we're going to see him carry teams to the finish line. So because of that, I'm putting my trust in Robinson, to kind of lead me to the promised land and hopefully squeak in these playoffs.
Okay. Well, your receiver room still worries me. McLaurin has had a weird year. Addison's looking up with the Jefferson injury, but he's questionable. I don't know what happened to him. And then
it's an ankle issue. He was limited on Wednesday.
It's an ankle. Okay. Yeah. So I think he'll probably be fine. And I really like him. Actually, I really like him as a player. He looks really good. And then Pacheco. You were talking about Pacheco. I am actually expecting Mahomes to do a lot more of the work this week. I know you talked about how Miami ran all over this Denver team, but Isaiah Pacheco is not either of those Miami running backs. He's not that talented. He's not that fast. Like that's just how it is. So, and then on Nick's side, he's got Lamar Jackson. We talked about him earlier with how his receivers just kept dropping the ball last week. I expect him to have a bounce back game, and then he's got DeAndre Swift, who's been great. Puka Nacua, I know you talked about how he might not be the number one guy there anymore, but he still had a really good week last week. I think he had 17
Absolutely.
points.
I think around 14, whereas Cup had 17.
16.6. So there we go. Yeah.
16.6.
So he still had a really good game. I'm going to expect the same thing from him. And yeah, it is your quarterback throwing on the ball, but those receiver yards count for more than running back yards. And the one big one I want to point out here is CeeDee Lamb going up against the Chargers. I think that is a big boom spot for not necessarily a shootout, but for CeeDee Lamb in particular. I think he's gonna eat. I just don't see that Chargers defense stopping him. They haven't stopped anybody yet, and it's delicious. I like it
a lot. Awesome. Let's move on to our next matchup. We have you against the winless Evan. Yeah, I mean, you got Fields in the lineup this week. Obviously Diggs against that Giants team. I think he's absolutely going to eat. Adams, just a down week last week. You informed me that he was dealing with that injury. So we'll see once again against that New England team that just allowed a subpar Saints offense put up 34 unanswered points against them. So, I expect Adams to have a bounce back week as well. I would say that, your running back room is still getting pieced together. You're definitely still shopping for a running back. You got Ford going against that San Francisco front seven. It's going to be a tough matchup for him, especially with weather considered. You also got Cooper going against, one of the best secondaries in the league with San Francisco. Trying not to sound biased, against one of the best secondaries in the league with San Francisco this week. So still a lot of question marks. I'm not sure if this is your final lineup. I see you maybe making some moves. I do like Fields against Minnesota. On the other end of the tape, you got Evan, T. Higgins still suffering, still dealing with some injuries. We see a resurgence of Wilson, a little bit of confidence on that Jets team now, but they're still going against Philly this week. So it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for Evan's team to kind of get rolling. Even though Taylor's back in the lineup, we saw Moss really lead that team last week. So I don't know if Taylor's going to take some time to get integrated to that offense, or what that carry split's going to really look like down the road. But right now, as of last week, Moss is still leading that running back core. So it's going to be tough for Evan's team to get traction. I don't see him picking up his first win this week against you. So I'm going to go ahead and pick your team to get the W this week.
Yeah, I'm going to go with me as well. I actually feel good about my better about my running back room with David Montgomery back. Last week he got everything, and he looks really good. If he keeps getting that role, then I think I have a stud running back in my running back room that I can ride all the way to a championship. Everybody else is just, Diggs. Diggs, Adams, those guys aren't coming out. My real question mark is I'm following the news on Deshaun Watson. If he doesn't play, then Ford and Cooper are coming out of my lineup. And if he does, then those guys probably stay in the lineup. But we'll see. We'll see how it works out. And then, Evan's team, he's got Josh Allen, who's been on fire. Jonathan Taylor just came back. He should be getting more work. And then the other note I had, he has Joshua Kelly in the lineup, which is,
Ah,
I mean, you have to do what you got to do at running back sometimes, but that's
I
rough.
mean, you know all
So
about
yeah,
that Kelly experience.
yeah, I do. It was awful. Guy's not good at football. But yeah, you got to do what you got to do. So yeah, I'm rolling with myself on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move on to the next matchup. This is probably going to be the keynote matchup of the week. We got Mike, first place undefeated against Sloth, who's quietly having a great season thus far, 4-1. Team is really looking good. We say this week in and week out, his team is dependent on how Jacksonville's offense does with Lawrence and Ridley. They obviously got the W in London last week. How are you, just a little caveat, how are you liking the early game? Oh, it's not so early for you, 8:30 start time for you, 6:30 start time for us in Cali. How are you liking the London games this year?
I hate it.
You
Hate
hate
it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it.
Why? Explain.
It just they have terrible fields. They go over there, they play on these bad fields. It's always raining. And they go, and it always ends up none of them are used to playing at that time or in that kind of area or weather. And it always ends up being a terrible game that isn't fun to watch, except for if you have a fantasy player that breaks a touchdown.
Yeah. So do you put an
The,
asterisk next to those wins? So, for example, Jacksonville knocking off the Buffalo last week. Do you look at that with the cat as like an asterisk, as an outlier? There's external circumstances that are impacting the
no,
game, or it's Jacksonville a top five, top 10
no.
team in the league?
No, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna throw out the home road aspect of it, where normally like Vegas gives them an extra field goal on the road or on
Mhm.
the when they're at home. So I'm gonna throw that aspect of it out of it
Okay,
because
that's
neither
fair.
of them are at home. I'm gonna expect it to go under, so I'm not going to expect a good fantasy day out of really anybody that's playing over there.
Okay.
And then I'm gonna wake up right before the game starts and make sure I don't have any players in that game that are in my lineup that aren't playing. Um, that's all I'm gonna do. And I know that this week actually there's a Germany game. The
Yeah.
Ravens and Tennessee, I think they're playing in Germany. So
Yeah,
gotta do it
got
again.
some got some family that's excited about that game. Got some family in Germany that's actually going to the game, so they're super stoked about
Are
it.
they? Are they excited about
Yeah,
it?
I mean, they're excited. This is there's a lot. Well, first off, you got to think, God, I can't believe I'm going to get into this. Post World War II, there's always been a U.S. presence in Germany,
Yeah.
specifically like, GIs that have started families out there, my family included. So there's a large American presence in a lot of the military towns in Germany still, Stuttgart, Gaudenheim, and there's a
Yeah.
huge NFL base. When I'm there, there are American sports bars similar to like Irish bars here, pubs here, or,
Okay.
there are a lot of American sports bars there where they're decked out in NFL teams, decked out in NBA teams, and, serving hot wings and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's great for them. I think it's great for the expansion of the sport as a whole. Um, but yeah, I mean, it does kind of suck, for the start times, field conditions, like you said. Me personally, I like it because I'm an early riser anyway. So I'm up at 6:30. The house is still quiet. No one else is up. I can sit back, enjoy the game unadulteratedly, like no, and so that's always nice. But yeah, I mean, I think that
I
they'll
mean,
continue to progress and get better
I'm not
conditions.
an early riser, so I mean, 8:30 is fine. Like it's not difficult to be up by 8:30 at all.
Mhm.
But it just sucks watching it. It's like this game isn't good. And it's typically because of those reasons. It's because there's two teams flying out there. They're all jet lagged. They're playing at a time that they're not used to. They're in a place they're not used to, and all this other stuff. And then you're making teams give up a home game for that. And those home games
Yeah,
are valuable.
yeah, completely agree, completely agree.
Send
Uh,
preseason games over there.
you got to grow the game, right? They're taking the NBA approach in the late '90s, which has allowed it to be, a massive international sport right behind soccer. And they're literally taking the effort to expand. Not only are there games in London, but Mexico, Germany this year. I've heard talks of games going to Australia, and Canada in the coming years. So, I mean, I don't think it's bad for NFL and football as a sport, and apparently 2028 flag football is getting added to the Olympics. So it's going to be,
Okay.
yeah. So I'm excited for football as a whole, not necessarily uh, for the watcher experience thus far, but
Okay.
yeah. Let's
Well,
jump back into this
let's touch
match.
on this matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. So going back to Lawrence and Ridley, depending on how they do against Indiana, is really going to be the guiding force for Mishlov's team. We got Cup against Arizona. It's interesting. He uh did the HN Mostert start last week. He's doing the Cup Williams matchup this week against Arizona. I'm not mad at it being a receiver and a running back, but we'll see how it plays out. Arizona has given some teams some really tough times. We saw what they did to Dallas a few weeks ago. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Rams do in that divisional opponent. Um, St. Brown, I've been really impressed with this Detroit team, how Goff has led it, their defense, and how St. Brown has done as well. On the other end of the tape, our only undefeated team left. Yeah, really, really impressed with Mike's team thus far. We got Tua going up the road to Carolina. Carolina's defense has been absolutely atrocious. I expect Tua to have a big game. And as we know, they do not hold back, right? We're not going to see them just running the ball in the third quarter, trying to burn clock. That team wants to put up points. They want to make a statement. They have no problem running up the score. And I expect that this week. I expect Tua to have a big game. And then, the rest of his team, really great running room with Henry and Pollard. We'll see if Waller, has a big game against Buffalo. He's been back and forth. Um, just looking at this overall, Kittle getting back on pace last week, uh, Mustard not having Adrian anymore. I feel like I'm feeling like this is the week that Mike takes his first L. I've never picked against Mike, but I think I'm going to do it this week. I think Mishloff gets that big W.
Yeah, so
That's
like you'd mentioned the Jags, and he's going to live and die by them, but I mean, he's also got the Rams. He's got two players on that team. And when I looked at his matchups, he had all green lights on his matchups this week except for George Kittle. That's Mishloff's team, I think, is just going to have a big week. I'm really excited to see what they can do. As for Mike, that Keenan Allen versus Dallas, I know a couple teams have beat up on them, but I don't think the Chargers are that kind of team that's going to just beat up on Dallas. So I'm watching that Dallas defense. And then he's got Darren Waller who's out, and that's a little bit tough. Or not out, but questionable. So we'll see how that plays out. I think he's been questionable a lot this year, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, I'm gonna go with Mishloff also. Mike's team has slowed down a little bit. And
Only
I
put up
just
one on
don't
one last
know.
week.
Tua going against Carolina. Carolina's not they're a decent defense, and Tua doesn't put up those crazy games when he's going against the better defenses.
Yeah, but officially going with Sloth this week, correct?
Yep, officially going with Schloff this week.
All right, so you heard it here first. We think that the undefeated Mike Medina is going to take his first loss this week across the board to a Mishlock.
Yeah,
Next
and
matchup
Mishloff's
we
been
have
playing along with us too. Every week he goes in and picks himself. He doesn't pick any of
love
the
that,
other matchups, but he goes in and picks himself every week.
love that,
It's
love that.
pretty
So
great.
he's 4-1 this year, so it's not
He's
doing too bad.
4-1 this year.
Yeah. All right, next matchup we got Jeremy going against Mr. Mark, Geno Smith, T. Hill, Thielen. What a year for Thielen, man. I think he's just Obviously, he did his thing, jumped on the scene when he was playing for the Vikings, had a couple of good seasons there, and really just had a resurgence of his career and has been maybe the one consistent on that Carolina offense. 22 last week, 11 the week before, 26 before that, 16 the week before that. Just loving to see someone that's considered a little bit older, more of a veteran presence, but just going off and being the number one target in Carolina this year. Love to see it. We got Gainwell, we got D Hops getting a touchdown last week for Jeremy. On the other end of the tape, we got Mark's team still yet to get his first W, but I think it's still a legitimate team. And we've seen the moves that he's made over the weeks, and he's just really faced some teams that go off, right? The teams see Mark on the calendar and they say, we're going off this week. And that's what we've seen week in and week out. Everyone's put up monster numbers against him. But, he may get his first W this week. I think Laporta has had, out of all rookie tight ends, he's definitely had the best year. Herbert, going against that Dallas defense. I don't think it's going to be a shootout because that Dallas defense is good, but I think he's going to put up numbers like he does almost every week. It's going to be a good matchup. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it is going to be a good matchup. Can you check that Herbert injury for me? I'm not sure what that is.
Yeah, it looks like he
he
has
fractured
fractured
a finger on
fingers,
his
but he won't
non-throwing
miss
hand. So
time.
that's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
So that's not any issue. I do think he will put up some points still, but like we talked about, that Dallas defense isn't a joke. Like just because the Niners were able to beat him up a little bit, and then Arizona somehow got the best of them, the defense is still really good. The things that worry me are all these other injuries. Olave, not only his injury, but Derek Carr hasn't been able to throw the ball in the last couple of weeks. So that's been affecting him. Roshan has a concussion. He might be back this week. So and then the other one was Jahmyr Gibbs, who surprisingly missed last week. So I don't know how, I can't really get a read on any of those players. So I'm really concerned with Mark's team here. And then Jeremy.
Yeah, if you look, I was going to say also with all the injuries, if you look at the bench, has multiple players on bye. So he doesn't have multiple players injured. Unfortunately, Jefferson going down this week, really, really, really unfortunate for such a perennial player. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. The injury bug has definitely bit the bridge crew.
Yeah, and I'm gonna expect Jeremy to get DK Metcalf in there at somewhere. And then Geno, if Geno's healthy, I think he has a good chance of having a big week. Tyreek Hill is always a good, the guy always goes off. I don't know how he does it.
Yeah. Well, he runs like a 4-2, 4-3. So.
Oh yeah, that's how he does it. And then Dallas Goedert.
Star.
I'd be looking for Dallas Goedert to have another big week. I know he struggled this season and finally had a good week last week, but the Jets are the worst team in the league against tight ends. So that's another matchup that is delicious, and I like it a lot. But
I'm gonna go with Jeremy's team this week. Who are you going with?
I'm also going with Jeremy's team this week. I just think that with all of Mark's injuries, I think Jeremy's team has it. I am concerned about Jeremy's RB2. Kenneth Gainwell hasn't been getting the ball much, but I'm expecting him to get Rachaad White in there. So I'm expecting him to make a couple. That's not his lineup, I don't think. So yeah, I'm going with Jeremy.
Yeah. All right, let's take a look at our last matchup for the week. We have Bizzo's team, ran by Mark, going up against Kyle. Purgatory Poppy, I like the new name. Is that you? We got Cousins going against Prescott. I think that, after coming off that Niners game on Sunday night, he's going to have something to prove against that soft Chargers secondary. Waddle, surprisingly, had a good game, and I expect him to keep that rolling against Carolina. And look who's back in the lineup. Mr. DJ Moore himself. Love to see it. And he's got Eckler coming back this week. You know, I think that Kyle's team is getting a little bit healthier. They're coming into their own. They got a blessing last week going against Mark and the injuries. But you know, I like Kyle's team. It's starting to pick up. It's starting to look healthier. Um, Going against though, Bizzo's team, who is, you know, despite it being drafted based off highest position, you know, just a really good team all around. Kirk Cousins, you know, he led the first 4 weeks, I believe, for all quarterbacks. Had some couple of down weeks, but going against Chicago, you know, who quarterbacks have absolutely ripped up. So I expect him to have a big week. Despite the Jefferson injury going down, I think that he has enough offensive weapons around him where he can still, you know, do his thing. Obviously, he's going to have to get Harris out of there before, you know, the game time. Hopefully, he remembers to do that. I expect him to. You know, maybe plug in Walker going against that Cincinnati team after getting rest
Definitely.
last week. Yeah, and we got Kelsey. I know that Kelsey. You know, obviously he's had a slow start to the season based off of Kelsey standards. You know, based off of normal tight end standards, it's a great year. But 14-14, or excuse me, 10-16, 9-17, coming off his probably best week against Minnesota. Now he's got a soft Denver defense. So, you know, if he can stay healthy with that ankle injury, expected to play on tomorrow. We'll see how it plays out in the short week. Looking at this, you know, it's tough, but you know, I'm gonna have to. I just think that with AJ Brown going against the Jets, Cousins going against Chicago, you know, Seattle getting back healthy after the week of rest, and Kelsey, I'm gonna go with Bizzo's squad.
All right. Yeah, I mean, all that stuff you said with Bizzo squad, with Mark and Bizzo squad. Yeah, he's gonna get Kenneth Walker in there instead of Najee, and I'm worried about those two injuries. The Miles Sanders keeps popping up with a different injury. He was really bad last week. So I'm worried about that. He hasn't really been great. He's been losing a lot of work to Chuba Hubbard. And then Kelsey, I don't know if you were watching that. It was a weird injury.
Yeah,
He kind of tried to plant and his leg slid out, so it looked like it was non-contact, but luckily it's
like
just his
it's
ankle.
the moment I see an injury like that, it takes me back 2017, Kobe. I'm thinking Achilles almost every time. I see
That's
that
what it
non-contact
looked like.
injury, and you see that like, and they just assume that someone like hit them. And I was like, I saw that, and I was just like, oh, Achilles. But you know, you saw him throwing his helmet, going to the tent, came back in the second half, and got a touchdown, I think. So I'm glad. I'm glad it wasn't, you know, a major injury.
Yeah, exactly. But he does have Kenneth Walker. He's on fire this season and coming off the bye. And then
Yep.
Kirk Cousins against Chicago. So those are two really good matchups. I like Kyle playing with the three quarterbacks playing the matchup and playing the hot hand. I like some of Kyle's matchups. He's got like DJ Moore back in the lineup. I, number 2 wide receiver on the year. Good thing he has him in the lineup, huh? Eckler
Right.
coming back. I think he's just got a lot going for his team. And I'm going to go with Kyle this week.
Nice. Nice. Great pick. Love it. So that concludes our picks for the week. Let's get into what you're excited about this week, brother.
What am I excited about this week? I'm going to just be watching Sunday football this week.
Yeah.
UT's got a bye this week. And yeah, just gonna relax on Saturday, maybe go on a hike or something, and then Sunday football. What about you?
Love
What are
it.
you
Love
excited
it.
for this week?
Like same shit, different week for me, brother.
Just
Still
waiting,
still
huh?
waiting. Just it's a waiting game in the Siddiqi household. Um, Mother-in-law is here. We're on still on baby watch, officially at 39 weeks. So fully expect him to be here. His actual due date is the 19th. So at some point in the next 8 days, right, we expect him. going into the doctor on Friday, and we'll see if they keep us. So it may be a very interesting weekend for me.
Oh,
Maybe watching football out of the hospital.
I'm excited for you.
Yeah, I'm excited. He's gonna inherit a lot of really cool uncles in the Gustavo Cup, so I'm excited for it.
Yeah, man. Yeah, awesome. Well, fingers crossed everything goes smoothly and safely.
I appreciate it. So this has been another week of the Gustavo Cup. Thank you all for watching. Our first year, man. It's been fun. It's been really fun to talk fantasy football a little bit more in depth. It's been fun having all of you on as guests, and obviously it's been a blessing and really great getting to host this with my big bro, Mr. Sean Ballek.
Yeah, man. It's been a great time. Like you said, just talking fantasy football and football in general is just fun. And I mean, most times out in the world, when you're talking fantasy football with somebody, nobody cares about your fantasy football team. So, but it's great to just talk about our league and just sit there and chat. It's fun.
Absolutely. Well, this has been another week. We appreciate you all for watching. Take care, and don't forget.
Like and subscribe. Good luck,
Yes, sir.
Tiger.
Good luck. All right, everybody.